the learning we took from EOS, our performance reviews and our conversations around career development growth are really oriented towards what's called GWC, gets it once it has the capability, and alignment with core values. So these are elements of EOS that are basically going through formally what we call people analysis, right? Where you essentially evaluate your team for, are you aligned with our core values? And do our people get it? Do they get their job? Do they want their job? And do they have the capability of performing their job, right? And so it basically boils down to right person, right seat kind of assessments. And, they're terms that most of us have read about. They're from common, management books that are out there today. But for us, it hasn't been the difficulty in wrapping our head around it. It's been more building our systems in the company to make sure that we're reinforcing them.
So I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of Over a Pint, where we discuss all the things that are going on in the world of marketing, the ever-changing industry that we've dedicated our careers to. And my name is Kurt Lingle. I'm the Vice President of Celtic. We are a full-service advertising agency located in the 3rd Ward, and I'm joined by my co-host, Brian Meehan, who's the President of Celtic. Hello, Brian.
Greetings.
And Mr. Pat McGovern, who heads up business development for Acedia, a digital company in the 3rd Ward as well.
Hey, everybody. Mike, thank you so much. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me today.
I'm really, really excited about this episode, guys. We've been talking about getting Mike on the show for a while. Full disclosure, I know Mike. I know Mike through various social circles, but over the years, I've also had a chance to grab coffee with Mike, had the occasional beer. He's come out and he was a guest speaker at a college class that I taught. And what I like about Mike and people like Mike Kenny is he, in addition to being a great guy and very smart, which I genuinely, I mean that, Mike, he brings a lot of intangibles to the table. What's always struck me is this is an individual that understands soft skills. He's a great communicator, and he's always had a way to break down a topic in a very conversational and comfortable way. And I think in our industry, and really any industry, that's quite a talent to have. And I think that's what's made him very successful. Yeah. So with that said, I'd like to officially introduce Mike Kenny as our guest. Mike Kenny is the Vice President of Sales over at Kapco. Mike, welcome.
Thank you very much, Kurt. I appreciate the warm introduction and the kind words. That's nice of you.
You bet. You bet. Mike, I'd like to kick things off, and I guess if you could maybe give us the Cliff Notes version of your story. It's a fascinating one, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about your history, what you do at Kapco, how you got to Kapco, and then just what makes you tick inside, your DNA, what makes Mike Kenny Mike.
Great. Well, thanks again, Kurt and Brian and Pat. I'm happy to be here today. Thank you guys for making time. So again, as Kurt said, my name is Mike Kenny. I'm the VP of Sales at Kapco Metal Stamping in Grafton. I've been with the company since 2016, so coming up on 4.5 years or so. I was with Hayes in Mequon for the 8 years or so before that. So I'm originally a Detroiter. I came to Wisconsin in 2008 or so. And just a little bit about my background. Well, first, a little bit about Kapco. Kapco is a full-service metal stamping company and fabrication company headquartered in Grafton. We have 6 locations across Wisconsin, so a proud Wisconsin company. Led and owned by Jim Kasmerick, the 2nd generation owner. So I've been fortunate enough to be part of Jim's leadership team for about 4.5 years, and just a great place to work, and I really enjoy being there. A little bit about my background: I'm originally an electrical engineer, born and raised in Detroit, so I had to convert from a Lions fan to a Packer fan early on in my time as I moved over. I started my career in sales after 7 or 8 years as an engineer. So I was an electrical engineer for General Motors early in my career. Wow. I moved into about a 15-year relationship with Bosch, Robert Bosch Corporation out of Germany, so a German multinational, primarily in automotive. So I started off as a sales engineer and then just progressed, in my career through, sales and business development. activities and then just general management, roles. So as I said, I became a Scotty in 2008. Been married 31 years. I've got two great daughters, a wonderful son-in-law, and a granddaughter who may or may not pop in on my lap at some point during the call today.
That's awesome.
Maya. So yeah, obviously my granddaughter's been a great joy to us. She dominates my social media life, for sure, and it makes me a very popular guy on Facebook. So Kurt asked a little bit about what makes me tick. So I moved into sales early in my career, and that's primarily just because I always loved business. I got a master's in finance over time with an international concentration. And really what I enjoyed is just trying to understand what makes businesses work and operate. And so originally it was just a healthy interest in their finances, right? I think if you want to understand what a company values, look at where they invest their money and basically the decisions that they make. So, for me, I always loved interacting, with people. I realized really in my career that, you could work hard, but you couldn't make much of a difference unless you had interaction with people and could sway, thoughts and opinions to a course of action that you felt, was the right one. So I found sales to be a great career choice for me early in my life. It's not what I grew up thinking I was going to do at all, being an engineer originally, but for me, it just allowed me to make an impact, to feel like I could really add value, personally, and just to feel the highs and lows of those efforts. I mean, there's nothing that'll take you from the highest highs to the lowest lows than being a sales guy. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. Been in Wisconsin since 2008. We love it here. Born and raised, in Michigan, my whole life before that. So we put roots down here and just love, living in this state. So by the way, to that end, I don't know if you're going to talk much about that, but here's what I'm drinking today. That's okay to jump that in. This is a Door County Trolley Red. My daughter, Savannah, brought that with a friend of hers over a couple of weeks ago. So apparently it's from Door County originally, but there's a brewery in Madison. So it's a little bit of what was in the fridge and kind of an interesting cherry lager. So you can see it in the glass.
Nice. It looks delicious.
Got a rich flavor, and it's really tasty in a late afternoon call like this. So thank you for allowing me to talk a little bit about myself.
Absolutely. And just, you're right. It is over a pint. We do this over a pint if people are willing. I am drinking a very heavy and very delicious Belgian Imperial Stout from a brewery in Waukesha called Raised Grain Brewing Company. It is very good. My first time having it, and I'm really enjoying it. So cheers to everyone here.
Nice.
Cheers.
And I'm taking a look at Set List from Eagle Park Brewing Company. I've yet to pop it, but I will shortly. But right here in Milwaukee, a great little brewery, and again, it's Set List.
Looks like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Looking at the logo on that can, awesome.
Pretty cool.
That's what you got.
I'm knocking back from Black Husky Brewing, which is, Kurt, how close is that to us? That's right on the
River West. That's a good brewery.
River West, right?
West, yeah.
Yeah. Spruce, which is absolutely delicious, guys.
I would drive past that place all the time going to see my daughter. She's a UW Milwaukee grad. The other one, the one that didn't go to Madison, the one who was local. And I've never been, so I'm curious to see how you like it. I've often thought it'd be a cool place to check out.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a very good one. So, well, cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
So, let me start off. So, if I could, I'm going to ask an obvious question. So, obviously, this year is unlike any year anyone has really experienced, regardless of what industry you are in. Mike, you were talking a little bit about, how your journey got you into sales, how you really crave and, that personalization and what obviously makes you successful. Part of that is, what you're very good at. Let me ask you, in terms of what COVID has done or what has changed, how has that impacted your day-to-day when it comes to dealing with customers, how you go about dealing with customers to really keep that engagement warm and personalization going? Talk to me about what that's been like, some of the adjustments you've made, some of the difficulties, things you've done.
Yeah, that's a great question, Kurt. I mean, there's no doubt COVID has impacted everyone, right? I mean, I think everyone in all industries, in all spaces have all been changed as a result of what we've gone through, right? So although none of us really predicted it, I mean, everyone that I know on my team is different as a result of using the tools. So for me, it's made me realize just how special, time with each other is, right? I mean, we're using tools like we're using today, Microsoft Teams or Zoom calls or things like that, and we're using them well. We're using them obviously much more comprehensively than we did before. But for me, I mean, I think what it's built for me is just an awareness that, we're definitely not built to be alone, right? So we need these tools to kind of interact. For sure, I think God wired us in a way that, we crave that interaction. And for me and my team, we have found that we can use these tools. We are absolutely, although the COVID drove that point home for us, we're all looking forward to the point when we can give somebody a handshake and a hug and appropriate, interact physically versus the tools that are there today. But I guess to your point and your question, Kurt, soft skills are always important, but they've never been more important than now, right? Our whole team at Kapco has gone through that. So for us, we're doing a lot of things differently with COVID than we did before. As a sales team, I'll talk to that in a little bit, but if I just step back and talk about the company, internally, I have to say I'm really proud of how our team has come together. I mean, we've taken a number of steps to protect, our employees and to communicate effectively while doing so. That's been our biggest challenge, is to make sure we're staying connected as a team and getting tighter, going through this. So for us, we implemented a whole new set of COVID procedures, right? PPE across production, keeping production up and running, being in a critical space, but obviously needing to take strong steps to protect, our employees. So that's probably been the biggest point for driving our management team, is how do we make sure we stay open at the same time protecting, our employees that have to be there. That definitely hits the sales team. I mean, we are actually helping out on the shop floor where we can as well. So for us, we got to make sure we follow those rules, and that our team knows, we're there with them, whether we're working from home or not. So for us, our working from home team for non-essential staff is there, but for us, we're doing things like regular Teams meetings. We're doing check-ins. We've done prayer calls at Kapco just to kind of realize that we've got needs there that we need to stay together. So that's another thing we've done that we weren't doing before, and really just balancing those work-life balance challenges, right? I mean, when we're working from home, you have to be ready for, like I said, my granddaughter to pop in on my lap or the bar or things like that. So that's, it's had a significant impact internally, for sure. I mean, externally, the same thing. I mean, we're fortunate, I think, to be in a business where we've got so many great tools, at our disposal. So for us, we're doing some things that we had not done before. Typically, a customer is going to come take a tour. We're doing that. We're doing that basically with a virtual tour now, and we've had some face-to-face tours, but I'd say 90% of our first introductions with customers are using a virtual tour. So it's not high production value. It's basically, shooting with a camera, a little introduction from me, a little, couple small talks from some of our operations leaders, but then it's really just kind of a walk around the floor and basically, obviously it's a little bit more scripted, but it's a quick, 5 or 8 minute tour. So somebody gets a feel for who Kapco is and what we're all about. And so that's something, we haven't done it. Obviously, the list of tools we're using is long, right? Teams, Zoom, Slack. I mean, there's a half a dozen tools that we're using regularly, and we've got more and more comfortable with it. So I'd say overall, COVID has increased technology adoption across the board for us internally and externally. We still crave certain meetings face-to-face, so we still do a daily production meeting, face-to-face live, because that interaction is critical. We're an EOS company, so we use the entrepreneurial operating system. So we do our level 10 meetings weekly, but we're doing those virtually. And then, our sales team has probably had to adapt the most, right? We've been successful, amazingly, landing major contracts and major work with, in some cases, as few as one face-to-face visit.
Wow.
So, that's something, dozens of meetings, but, one face-to-face visit. And that's a paradigm shift that, frankly, none of us had predicted, and none of us actually would have even thought possible. So it's definitely, it's changed our world. It's changed how we sell today all the time.
It's interesting hearing your story, Mike, is, there's some companies that you hear about or we deal with that, we'll just take a wait and see and we'll ride this out. And they want to hold on to the way they've always done it. And what I appreciate what you were saying is, it's different and we have to change. Our business has to change. Would we love to have more one-on-one interaction and go back to the old way of doing things? Absolutely. I mean, all of us around the screen believe in personalized sales and having coffee and sitting in a conference room with someone, but who knows when that's going to come back. So
Sure.
let's use Teams. Let's use Zoom. We're working on virtual trade shows, virtual showrooms, virtual tours. Again, not the most ideal, but I appreciate that Kapco is just saying, all right, there's a paradigm shift and we got to change with it.
Yeah, I'd be curious to get your perspective, Pat and Brian and Kurt together on this as well. But in my mind, the soft skills are not less important, right? I mean, we're doing it electronically. So we've talked it through, right? Hey, it's keep your camera on whenever you can, right? Whenever it's appropriate, right? I mean, when you're working from home, sometimes it's not always appropriate to have your camera on, or your microphone on, but whenever you can, you should have it on, right? And just the basics, right? I mean, smile when you're on camera. Talk a little bit about your personal life, right? I mean, people realize that you're in a work from home environment, so don't be embarrassed or shy about that, right? So we've actually probably doubled down, on kind of those personal parts of meetings, simply because that need for connectivity has been impacted, right, by the fact that we're looking at each other over screens, right?
Yeah,
Rather than
yeah.
good morning, hello, and how was your weekend, and what did you do this weekend that
Absolutely.
you might get, from a personal interaction.
Yeah.
It's funny. I agree with you. When we first started, it was when COVID hit. It was a lot of email and messaging, and that was great. It was a lot of back and forth, but you lost all of that kind of human connectivity.
Sure.
Where I still think when you talk soft skills or so, on a Zoom call, you have to be attentive. You have to be listening. You have to be asking the right questions. You have to be empathetic. You got to get to know people personally. So at first, I think we were all resistant to it, but it's a nice replacement tool for the live one-on-one, at least for now.
Yeah, I would agree.
It strikes me a little bit too, Mike, a lot of the things that you're doing at Kapco, you're rethinking things, and I think that's part of what we have to do. We're always reinventing whatever we're reinventing, whether it's certain mediums get reinvented. But, when I listened to some of the things that you're doing, and obviously had a chance to get some information from you ahead of time, your culture, I think, has a lot to do with what set you up for success. You were telling us about a lot of things that Kapco has put into place in the last short amount of time, over the last 9-10 months. And, unless you have a team that's just hungry and ready to just, we're ready for this, it can fail miserably. And I get the sense, your culture really probably has helped put you in a position to be successful and to embrace all these ideas and different ways of approaching business. I would venture to think, correct?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we had done a lot of work on this before, Kurt, and I don't know if you can see this, but this is basically a card that our marketing team put together that was just to articulate the Kapco core values, right? And basically on the back of the card, they're laid out here, right? So I think this year it's challenged us to really focus on those core values, right? We've been trying to make sure we hire and develop people around them. Just for information, we have 6 core values: innovation, attitude, integrity, impact, accountability, and safety. And we have a sentence around each one. And what I think this year has done is it's allowed us to practice those things. And I think to the credit of Jim and the culture that he's built, we have gotten quite comfortable, talking through the accountability aspect and the interaction with each other, so that as we move to tools like this, we were totally comfortable, whether you're kneecap to kneecap, as I say, or whether you're over a call, to basically call somebody out, if there's a discussion that needed to be had on one of our core values, right? And so for us, I mean, our team has strengthened significantly during this pandemic, and I hope other people's at other companies that have been tested have had a similar result. But I do think for us, it's been a real it's been something we're extremely proud of. I mean, we've had a rough, challenging year. I think, like everybody did. Love to talk about that, a little bit. But I think our core values have served us, right? I mean, to get there. I mean, ultimately, it was our second best year ever from a revenue and a profitability, standpoint. We're investing heavily in the business, but it was a tale of 2 years. I mean, obviously with COVID, the whole year was turned upside down for us. It was a really strange year, right? We were a little bit soft going into COVID, so we had a V-shaped recovery with a really odd, strength on the right side of the V, if you will. I mean, the right side was higher than the left side. And I say soft, it was soft-ish. It was our second highest year ever. Our highest year ever was the year before, right? So at the end of the day, we built upon those expectations. We were not anticipating softness like we ran into. But basically that challenged us on both fronts, right? It challenged us to save cost on the first part of the year, but it also challenged us to deliver on the back half of the year, right? So, in March and April, our sales team was doing nothing other than just checking in with people and asking them how they're doing. Hey, how are things in your state? Are you open or are you shut down? Are you critical or are you not critical? When you come up, what's it going to look like, right? We weren't thinking about selling. We were thinking about just staying in touch, right? So we weren't talking about sales, at all. It was really just about making sure everybody was okay. But then as the year progressed, I mean, we saw significant strengthening across all segments of the business. I mean, some of it had started actually pre-COVID. I mean, for us, in being in the metal industry, the 2018 timeframe had brought what we call Section 232, or the tariff discussions that were a significant player, in our space. That created discussions with customers about reshoring work, but obviously those accelerated as COVID hit. So for us, it took some trends that were happening already and accelerated them significantly. And for us, I mean, we strengthened in May, and June, July, August, September, October, November, now December have all been record months. So
fantastic.
It's a great place to be, but I don't want to sound that it's easy. I mean, it's not an easy place to be. The struggle is real on the upside as well as it is on the downside, right? So it's just a different kind of problem, right? So our challenge now has been adding enough team members to get there. But to that point about coming together as a team, we are helping out on the floor from the office whenever we can, and and I think that things like that do more for your culture and your teamwork than just about any other program you could come up with, right? Because it's just about being there together and rowing in the same direction.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was reading an article. There was an article. It's funny, you were talking about how it's we're all in this together. There was an article in Harvard Business Review, and it was talking about how companies need to reconfigure their sales strategy during the pandemic. And it's funny, as they go down, the focus was put sales at the center of your overall strategy. And it was two-part. It wasn't just about what you're selling in order to have an impact on revenue, margins, and market share, but it was also the how. So I think back to some examples you were saying, where it's like we need to rethink how we're engaging our customers. We need to empathize. We need to reach out to them early on, just see how they're doing. So that was interesting. And just the other thing too is just even though I think we've had to force ourselves to become more technologically savvy, and we've gotten better at it. We've had to. I mean, companies have advanced quickly in a matter of time. The good ones still remember that somehow that personalization. How can we find that balance, and how do we, whether it's trying to find those moments. So it's an ongoing balance, and we face it too. It's all companies are facing that challenge. How do you separate the two, and how can you leverage the good and things like that. So anyway.
No, it's a great point, right? I mean, it's never been more important as you're staying connected with people, as you start to get a feel for what they're going through, to remember to check in. Hey, I heard you had an issue with one of your family members. How are they doing? Is your church back up and running, or are your kids playing sports again, or is your school district open or closed, right? So just to be connected, with your customers and clients and your contacts, and just know what's going on in their life, I think is it's actually what makes our careers fun, right? I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, it's about people and the interaction that you're having with them. And what's actually been nice about this is actually we can get many more interactions done now than we actually could pre-COVID, because of all of the efficiencies of popping on a Zoom call and doing 10 or 12 events within a day, versus traveling. You might be able to make one or two or maybe three sales calls in days, right? I mean, to some extent, this has actually improved productivity, even though it's not what any of us think of when we think of making sales calls, right?
Yeah.
Mike, you mentioned earlier in your comments two things that I want to dive a little bit deeper on. And the first is the EOS, which I'm familiar with, and I was excited to see that you guys use that as well. I think that's a really, really interesting system. And the second thing you talked about was the core values. And, let's be honest, guys, there's a lot of companies and they all have core values. Mike, would you say your superpower as an organization is being able to really live those values? And if that's the case, how do you pull it off, right? I mean, how do you make it so it's just not lip service on 6 words on the back of a card, that you're really living this day to day? Because that really seems like the challenge for most.
Yeah, that's a great question, Pat. I mean, well, the EOS methodology just simply kind of gets you focused on the right things going on in the business, right? So for us, we had actually written down our core values even prior to accelerating our efforts with EOS. But there's no doubt about it. I mean, you are regularly, if you're going to publish your core values, you're going to open yourself up regularly for feedback when you're not living up to them, right? And so you should never publish them if you're not prepared to defend them and to believe in them and to allow a healthy conversation when some may feel like your core values are not being followed, right? So for us, it's definitely been a journey. I wouldn't say we're perfect on our core values, to be perfectly honest. I think there's a few core values that we would say we've nailed, and there's a few that are aspirational and that we're working towards. I would say every one is inherent in who we are, but I would say we're further along, the journey on several of them than others. But what it does is it allows for conversation around the things that need to happen in the business that are going to be important for you to get better, right? And I think that's what I've seen both with EOS and with publishing our core values, is it's allowed those conversations to be focused on something we all agree on, right? So at the end of the day, we don't disagree that we're committed to safety in all we do. Everyone agrees, However, that doesn't mean we don't have discussions every day about whether what we did today was safe, or if, God forbid something happens, that we did everything possible to make sure that safety event, didn't happen, right? And so, by communicating it, you put it out there that it's important, but you'll regularly get opportunities to reinforce it. And I think that's been the healthiest thing for us to do, is to get it out there. We've got banners hanging down from the facility. What we've challenged ourselves to do is make sure we are rewarding and hiring and developing based on those core values. And I'd say that's probably the learning we took from EOS. Our performance reviews and our conversations around career development growth are really oriented towards what's called GWC, gets it, wants it, has the capability, and alignment with core values. So these are elements of EOS that are basically going through formally what we call people analysis, right? Where you essentially evaluate your team for, are you aligned with our core values? And do our people get it? Do they get their job? Do they want their job? And do they have the capability of performing their job, right? And so it basically boils down to right person, right seat kind of assessments. And, they're terms that most of us have read about. They're from common, management books that are out there today. But for us, it hasn't been the difficulty in wrapping our head around it. It's been more building our systems in the company to make sure that we're reinforcing them.
Yeah.
I'd say we're really happy with how it's going, but I would say, next year we'll say we're further along the journey than we even are now.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, I've got, I'm sorry, Kurt.
Please.
I was going to say, I've got a sales-oriented question, and it's a follow-up to what you were talking about before, that when COVID hit, a lot of businesses said, let's hold off on our marketing. Let's take a step back. Let's be empathetic. Let's reach out to our customers. How you doing? How can we help you? We're available to you 24/7. So it was kind of that empathetic approach and really getting to know what their pains were. Now, as we start to hopefully see light at the end of the tunnel, how do you plan to kind of ramp up your sales efforts again? I mean, what's the timing on that? What types of tools will you be using? I'm just trying to get a sense of when businesses will kind of be back at it again with their full throttled sales approach. I mean, could you offer any insight on that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our business was impacted by COVID, so we certainly had to thrift back expenses, and there were definitely things we did on both the sales and the marketing side that we had planned, that we had recadenced and reshuffled. So, we're not immune to those forces as well. But to be fair, we've always had a multi-year strategy for marketing as it supports our sales activities, and those efforts didn't change as a result of COVID. I mean, we might have recadenced some of the timing, but it was actually, honestly, Brian, more from the perspective of being ready to execute on the work that we already had. And we've been blessed with so many new customers and new projects to work on that we actually have to make sure we don't oversell our capacity.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I think from that side, we're working closer with marketing than we ever have, before. It's led by Angela Bonovich, who actually was our driver behind our core value discussion. So Angela's, got a great background experience. She's been here for years or so, has done great work for us since she's been with us. But really working with marketing has never been closer than it is now. I mean, we have 5 efforts that are part of our marketing strategy, and they're all built around how we communicate and how we sell. So they are basically first, primarily, well, there's a significant amount of work in our marketing team on supporting recruiting, because it's really our biggest constraint right now on growth is people, right? So our marketing team is heavily involved in that. But if I put that off on the side a little bit, I can speak to some of the things we're doing there in a few minutes. But specifically from the sales side, we've got 5 things that we're working on. First, we've launched a trade campaign to kind of create brand awareness in new markets, generate leads, and expand business, with current customers to support sales. Amazingly, for as well known as Kapco is in this area, we've never really focused on name recognition other than maybe some philanthropic activities, right? And so we were fortunate enough to pick up a significant piece of new business with a company that makes sanitizer stands, obviously in high demand, right, with COVID.
Wow.
So that was amazing, but it made us realize that really we need to create brand awareness of Kapco in the markets and in the areas that we're targeting. So that's the first one. The second one is we want to actually develop and execute a social media strategy. So we've got active campaigns, going on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and a number of others that are not just around some of the philanthropic things that the company is doing, but also the value that we provide to our clients, right? So just little anecdotes that are basically trying to talk about capability and knowledge and brand and name recognition,
right?
But are built on really leveraging social media, much more so than we have historically. Third, we are working to develop customer communication strategies, right? So our customers are all unique; they have unique challenges and business problems, and rather than one size fits all, we want to have the ability to tailor our communications with customers specifically to their needs. Sounds simple, but it is actually something that we historically had just left up to the sales guys to figure out, and that meant that the messaging might not be on point. It might not be consistent with things we're trying to get done. So we're trying to blend, what we want to do from a corporate perspective with what's unique and relevant for that customer, right? And so developing customer marcom strategies that are customer specific are something actually, frankly, we're still working on, but we're hoping to launch in the next year. We also are working to try to improve employee engagement and communication. So again, it's a little bit more of just making all of our team members salespeople, right? So I have a card on one of our engineers' desks that says nothing happens till somebody sells something. And we've landed work from some of the social media comments that some of our planning and other people have made. So, amazingly powerful by getting our teams engaged in what's going on, that they will help spread the word, through their social media challenges. And then lastly, we're launching a new website that's mobile optimized. I mean, we're a little bit catching up there. We've got some work to do there, but we want to be set up for lead generation, for nurturing those leads, and also, working in a smartphone world rather than a desktop world alone, which is how our original site was put together. So
that's fantastic.
More information than you were looking for, Brian, but those are the kind of 4 or 5 things.
It's great because we always try, people that are watching this are businesses of all shapes and sizes. They're all planning for next year. And I think it's just good for them to hear, what are others focusing in on? What types of strategies are they going to be building off of for 2021? So that was a great answer. Thank you.
Yeah, but let me just jump on that, Mike. I mean, what you just rattled off there is kudos to you and the team, because that's really advanced thinking, especially in the manufacturing space. And I'm not blowing any smoke. I mean, I've had a lot of conversations, and the fact that you're even acknowledging, listen, guys, we can't sell anything until people know who we are. That's an awareness issue.
Sure.
That seems like it would be a pretty easy conversation to have, and yet it's one of the most difficult to have, right?
Yeah.
Because people have a tendency, organizations have a tendency to view their world as, we're known here. Okay, but you're not known anywhere else outside of here,
Sure.
wherever that here may be, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. Well, I give a lot of credit to Angela. She's extremely strategic. She's extremely smart. She's got experience with multinational companies doing this. So she brings a structure and a rigor and a discipline to that activity that I would agree that the ideas are not hard to wrap your head around, but they take there's a certain amount of leadership knowledge and awareness you have to just recognize that there's a gap, right? Because you tend to drink your own Kool-Aid and think the work you've done is great. And although the work, I would be proud of the work that we had done before, it really wasn't focused on those things, right? And to be fair, we have to work closely together. We are much more oriented towards strategic relationships. So we don't really want quantity. We really want quality of that.
Yeah.
And that does mean, creative effort that's really targeted and focused rather than blast. We're not trying to reach 5,000 new customers. We're trying to find the next 10 that are going to be significant contributors to our future growth.
Yeah. Hey, Pat, just to play off you really quick, just a quick point. What I love about what you're saying, Mike, is when we've dealt with companies that are 100% sales driven, those initiatives that you just talked about aren't on the table. It's just generally, I need some sales collateral and some tools to go out, and I'll take care of the rest. What this indicates to me, the things that you're focused in on, is you've got a perfect marriage of sales and marketing going on here. And that doesn't always happen. Sometimes sales leads, sometimes marketing, sometimes product development. But I really liked what I was hearing, Pat, and you brought it up, as these are things you don't hear at a lot of manufacturing companies unless marketing and sales are working together.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's clearly something Jim has always valued, right? I mean, Jim Kesmerick, our owner, has always been focused on making an impact in people's lives and being able to tell that story to try to motivate people. If you look at many of the things that we do, it's about motivating behavior to get more people doing those kind of things, right? So I think from that perspective, he's always had a mindset of trying to do things that have not been done before and do them in new and creative ways. And I think Angela has just provided a great structure and rigor and discipline towards basically making those things a reality, right? I mean, with entrepreneurs, I'm sure you guys can appreciate that. We all have lots of ideas, but serial entrepreneurs have hundreds of ideas, right? And I think from that perspective, our marketing team has done a nice job of working through those ideas and just making sure that we're delivering on a few that are going to provide the highest ROI.
A couple things really quickly that I noted here, just listening to you respond, Mike. Earlier on, we talked about just lip service. There are a lot of companies. It's easy to say something where it's like, these are our core values, or this is how we want to. Here's what we want to accomplish, but there's never really a game plan. You kind of outlined in detail, this is what we want, and here's how we're going to try to get there. And I appreciate that. And it is not easy at all. We could attest to that. We work with a lot of brands, even ourselves. I mean, it's hard. These things that you're talking about are very hard to do. What I also like too, just listening to you answer, you've been very complimentary. I noticed that, and again, it gets back to her culture. You've mentioned Angela's name a number of times. Your teams, you've given a lot of credit, and I think again, that says something about. Well, you as a person, but I think it's also saying something about your culture. That it's very much team, and my sense is, even though it's not always rainbows and butterflies everywhere, my sense is that's kind of what the culture is at Kapco, and which I think is really cool, because again, it's not always that way, but that's something that just listening to you, I'm picking up on.
I appreciate you saying that, Kurt. I mean, it's we are a strong team. I mean, we're a work hard, play hard culture is the way I would describe our culture. So we are definitely competitive. It's not just simply kumbaya and let's all get along. We definitely have objectives of what we want to get done. During COVID, we actually doubled down and articulated what our 10-year vision is as a company. So we call it the island. We have a path to the island, and And what I think that did, though, is you can't really put meat on an island discussion that's that far out in the future without people really working together to develop it robustly. And I think from that perspective, our team is functioning really well, towards identifying what that looks like, identifying where that growth, can and should come from, but also more importantly, how do we get there? And I think that's the exciting part about being at Kapco now is that we're the core values and our EOS commitment and this island discussion has really gelled us into all kind of rowing in the same direction and identifying what success looks like. And Jim has always set the culture of when we have success, he's going to share it with those that made it happen. So I think from that perspective, it's a strong part of who we are. We like to win and we like to be there together, and we want to spread the credit where it belongs when we have success, right? I mean, we don't always have success, right? But at the end of the day, we're also getting healthy around, trying to identify when we fail or when we don't have the win that we want, why that was, and to try to learn from it and basically be in a better spot the next time. So it is a great culture. I do like being at the company. It's a great fit, and I'm really proud to be there.
Mike, do you feel that your core values, along with EOS, and you have to wrap in the culture with that? Do you think that is a competitive difference for you? And do people want to work with you because of that? Once you explain what you stand for?
I would hope so. We're certainly not doing that to be a differentiator, Pat. We're doing that just to basically have a better impact and control over what's going on in the business. I mean, as we've grown, the business has gotten more diverse and more challenging to manage. So part of that is to have a common business methodology so that whether it's sports and entertainment or whether it's Kapco or whether it's SpeedCore or ACI, I mean, the various entities that Jim owns, we've got a common language that we can use in EOS. So I think that's been the biggest enabler, is that it's allowed us to use common language as we try to solve, a wide disparate range of challenges in those different businesses. I believe most customers would say that the differentiation for Kapco is an incredibly strong commitment to investment in technology and in capability. And so, what we often communicate with customers is that we have multiple ways to make a product, and we can work with them on whatever the right blend is of investment and piece price and piece investment, tooling appetite and things like that to deliver, to have multiple ways to deliver, a solution that meets their needs. That's what we hope most customers would say about us, and that's really the focus of a lot of our marketing efforts, is to tell that story, in a way that doesn't sound like we're bragging, that can give real world illustrations of solving problems for customers. So I think that's ultimately what they're looking for. It's one of the things I would have to say we really seen in COVID is that there isn't any kind of dancing anymore. At the end of the day, a customer is rarely just spot checking. If they're engaged, they have a serious business need that they want to move on, right? And so from that perspective, we're doing fewer quotes, we're winning a much higher percentage, and we're finding that the customers that are talking to us have serious business legitimate issues, that these are not market tests anymore. These are serious and legit issues, and there's business to be won, in the short term if you stay focused. Now, for us, that also means recruiting and having talented people, right? I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, we'll invest in equipment and technology. Our biggest determining factor towards growth is really our ability to hire, train, and retain.
Mike, if you go to your homepage, you hit on technology. That was one of the first things that struck me. It was a commitment to invest in technology. I saw it right there. So, but you know what? Let's talk about people for a second, and maybe as we shift now to 2021, let's look ahead as we kind of start to wrap up a little bit. But we just talent acquisition, welder, buying position, tool and die maintenance, quality inspector, welder robotic operator, truck driver. This was just from today. I mean, I'm seeing, you guys are hiring. You're a growing company.
Absolutely.
And obviously it gets back to, you need people, right? And so that's a good thing. And I'd imagine there's two challenges that you need people, but you need the right people. You need the right people on that
Sure.
bus, as well as say the Kapco people.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we absolutely need people that are aligned with our core values, right? So that's an absolute must. But beyond that, we can train the skills. So we are taking people from industries that have been hit hard and training them that have never done the work, before. And we're taking people from companies that have been in similar spaces, right? So there's no doubt there's dozens of job openings at Kapco. So absolutely, if you have interest in a career at Kapco and in our culture, please check out our website. That list is changing all the time. I think we're over 50, openings at the minute right now. So those openings are there. I mean, our careers, we can teach people manufacturing. So if they haven't been in manufacturing before, we see that digital natives, should have interest in working at Kapco, because with Industry 4.0 and technology, people that have grown up in software and even video games and just growing up in a digital age, they will adapt well in this environment. This is not the metal stamping and metal fab work of 30 or 40 years ago, right? So people that are highly skilled in digital are going to be in high demand at our company and others. So if you don't have those skills today, but you're willing to learn, come and talk to us, right? We're committed to investing in our people. We've got a program called Kapco University, which we're going to be rebranding and relaunching, not only for our own team, but over time, the community as well. So we're focused on really all three aspects of the person: their technical skills, their business and their life skills, if you will, and just their spirit. I mean, so basically mind, body, and spirit. We want to basically be there to support and teach all, in Kapco University. So, and just benefits beyond the paycheck. I mean, we've got a great company to work for. So, gym membership, lots of other perks. I'd say we used to have great parties. We're hoping to get back to that as COVID happens. But I think our goal is to have a positive impact on more than 1 million lives annually, starting with the 600 people that are in our family today and growing every day. So we're certainly open for business and always looking for good people.
Yeah. And Mike, let me ask you this too, as we look at 2021. I'd be remiss if we didn't give you an opportunity. You guys are doing some very cool things in the communities that you touch. Obviously, giving back a number of different ways, we all believe that's important. At Celtic, we're big believers in giving back through our wallets, through our talents. What we do on a day-to-day basis, volunteerism. And I know CD is the same way. You're doing some cool things, and obviously, I'm looking at your sweater right now, and we're taping this on December 21st, by the way. Yep. So we are a few days from Christmas. But if you could, obviously, even the kids, Christmas Wonderland program that you guys are doing. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I think that's just one example of the many cool things that you guys are doing.
Sure. Well, this won't show up on the podcast, but since you brought up the sweater, let me get you the full look, and see the lights going. That is, I was taking a shot at the ugly sweater contest, so I think I made the top 5 at that contest today. That was one of the things we did today, and just had lunch, for our employees, just kind of a thank you. We're obviously not doing the potluck and the things like that we had done before, but just trying to, with box lunches from out in Cedarburg, trying to basically be there for all of our employees. That happened today. We combined that with the ugly sweater contest. Obviously for us, a big part of the company is our philanthropic goals. As I stated, we want to impact 1 million lives annually. By the time this airs, Kids to Kids will be done, but the Kids to Kids toy drive is in full force right now. And we've done it really uniquely this year with a drive-through experience because of COVID. So, we still raised way more than 20,000 toys, and it was wildly successful. We had 2 or 3 times the volume, the number of people go through that we were hoping for. So great success on that front. It's really one of many things we're doing, right? I mean, Camp Hometown Heroes would be another one. Camp Reunite. So basically trying to be there for the children of fallen service heroes, is what the intent of Camp Hometown Heroes is. Camp Reunite is to reunite children with incarcerated parents, same kind of trauma or similar kind of trauma that folks are going through there. So we're really trying to be targeted and specific with all of those activities towards meeting needs that are dramatic. We actually have a vice president of philanthropy, at the company. So similar title to myself. It's a commitment in Neil Willinson, who's been with us 10 years now. basically is a big spearhead behind a lot of those activities. So it's a really neat part of the culture at Kapco, because I think from that perspective, we're all encouraged and motivated and really get a lot of joy by participating, in those things, because I think it just allows us to make a difference in what we're doing and to give back. So it's really a neat series of opportunities at the company.
That's fantastic. Well, I'll tell you this: we are. I think it's cool to have. We're very fortunate to have great brands here in Wisconsin, and we don't take that for granted, and I don't think anyone should. And Kapco is just one example. We have a number of great brands, but we're lucky to have a Kapco in our backyard here. We really are, and I commend for what you guys are doing over there, all the good things you're doing in the community, but also your successes with business. And I think it's fantastic. There's a lot of lessons that can be learned that I'm hoping that our audience and all of us can glean from this a little bit. I guess, Mike, if I could, final words. This has been fantastic, but I'm going to throw it back to you. If there's any final words that you want to share with our audience before we close off, and I just think Brian and Pat, maybe what I'll do is I'll start with you two, and then let's finish with our guests. I want to give Mike the final word.
Well, I'll jump at it. It's I'm going to open the can of worms. 2021. Everybody's asking to predict the future. That's why I brought in my magic 8-ball. And what I do is I just shake it until I get the answer that I like. Mm-hmm. Just kidding. That's how we know. I joke. We're a little bit more strategic than that. Real quickly, what do you see for 2021? Maybe the top 2 or 3 trends that you see out there.
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here today, guys. We definitely see a strong 2021. For us, the biggest challenge we have in the short term is material costs. We haven't talked about that yet today, but our material costs have doubled in the last 90 days. So for us, it's going to have a significant strategic impact that actually we weren't anticipating from that perspective. So it's similar to 2018 when the 232 tariffs, were being discussed. That's going to be there. However, that having been said, we are extremely optimistic for 2021. We've got significant new awards coming at us. We've got a very full book of business. Our recruiting signs are out, and our commitment to automation and Industry 4.0 projects to help us continue to do more with the resources that we have is there. So we are extremely bullish on the year. I'd say, our biggest challenge is going to be on the recruiting side, right? I mean, with changes in presidential leadership and in CARES Act activities and things like that, and with 5% unemployment in Wisconsin, it's a real challenge to find people, right? So our biggest fear or apprehension is in our ability to recruit fast enough for the business. So we're putting a big portion of our marketing and our recruiting efforts on that to make sure we can solve those challenges. But that is the absolute path to the key to the win for 2021. So I would say in general, closing words for me, I would just say what this experience has taught us is to always just remain optimistic. There are always good things going on in any market. We've had a lot of good things that have happened, especially this time of year. I just want to say how thankful I am for the gifts that I've been given and have, and our team has, and our company has, and especially in this season, it's a good time to remember those things. So I would say, even in the last 10 days, I've thought about this the other day in preparation for this. I hosted a prayer call. I participated in a retirement party for my brother in Michigan who retired after a 22-year career, at the last company he was at. I've had multiple customer interactions, and we've done dozens of meetings, and I've only been back to the office 2 days out of the last 10. So I think from that perspective, it's been amazing to see the efficiency and the productivity that are there. And I'm just so thankful that we live in the country we do, and with the technology that we have to be able to continue to have the kind of success that our companies are counting on us for, as sales leaders, because ultimately at the end of the day, that top line is what's going to drive, employment and drive our businesses forward. So we're obviously very hopeful that the virus activities with vaccines go smoothly, and that we can return to normal. And I think for us, many of us miss a lot of the things that we had pre-COVID, and we're looking forward to those things coming back. So,
well said.
Oh, wow.
There you have it, folks. Mike Kenny from Kapco. Mike, we appreciate your time. It's been a fascinating conversation, and you're welcome on the Over a Pint couch at any point in time.
Well,
Cheers to you. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
thank you guys very much. I appreciate the time. Merry Christmas to you.
Cheers.
Guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, Mike.
Take care.